Hello friends, welcome back to our YouTube channel. Hope you are all doing well. Currently we are discussing about the programs of environmental education for attitude changes among the children, and we had talked about Save Dal Lake project, and today we are going to discuss about Save Hangul project. Alright, then let's start. शुरू करने से पहले मैं आपको बता दूं, अगर आप चैनल पर नए हैं तो मेक श्योर आप चैनल को ज़रूर सब्सक्राइब करें. लेट्स स्टार्ट विद द ब्रीफ इंट्रोडक्शन. As you know, जो environmental education है, it plays a very vital role also in wildlife conservation. That is by shaping not only knowledge but also attitudes, emotions and behavior of the students. And one of the most effective strategies जो है in environmental education, that is using flagship species as iconic animals जो कि represent करते हैं health of an entire ecosystem. The Hangul, his name is Cervicus. Scientific name is Cervus Hangulu, which is also called as Kashmir stag, which is one of the most important flagship species, and it is critically endangered species, and it survives almost entirely within the Dajigam National Park in Jammu and Kashmir. Because जो Hangul है, it exists nowhere else in the world. And so इसका जो survival है, that is closely linked with the rational identity, ecological balance and cultural pride. And environmental education programs जो हैं, that also focuses on the Hangul, which aims at to transform children's attitude from seeing it as just another animal to recognize it as a living heritage that must be protected. First of all, let's talk about the psychological pillars of attitude change in environmental education. जो effective environmental education है, it generally targets three psychological domains of learning in order to ensure lasting attitude change among the children. First जो है, that is affective dimension or emotional connection. जो affective component है, it focuses on the feelings, empathy and emotional attachment. And in Hangul based environmental education programs, जो children हैं, they move from indifference to concern, and they begin to feel pride in having a rare animal that is unique to their homeland, and they also develop emotional bonding which encourages compassion and responsibility among them. और जब children जो है, when they emotionally connect with the Hangul, जो conservation है, that becomes a moral obligation rather than an academic topic. Second जो है, that is cognitive dimension, that is knowledge and understanding. जो cognitive component है, it builds scientific understanding, जहाँ students जो है, they learn that कि जो Hangul का role है as an indicator species, meaning इसकी जो population है, that reflects the health of Tachigam's ecosystem, and how जो loss है Hangul species का, that कैसे वो सिग्नल देता है फॉरेस्ट डिग्रेडेशन का, और जो इकोलॉजिकल रिलेशनशिप है बिटवीन प्रे, प्रेडेटर्स, वेजिटेशन एंड क्लाइमेट. सो चिल्ड्रन जो है, दे लर्न अबाउट दिस आस्पेक्ट्स, एंड ये जो नॉलेज है, दिस नॉलेज अल्टीमेटली हेल्प चिल्ड्रंस इन अंडरस्टैंडिंग व्हाई सेविंग हांगुल मैटर्स फॉर द एंटायर फॉरेस्ट सिस्टम. ठीक है. थर्ड जो है, दैट इज connotative dimension, that is behavior and action. जो connotative component है, it focuses on the action and influence, जहाँ children जो है, उनको encourage किया जाता है to talk their family members about the wildlife protection, and they also discourage grazing or disturbance near the forest areas, and they also support conservation laws and ethical tourism. Thus जो students हैं, they become active agents within their communities. ठीक है. Second, talking about the silent features of Save Hangul environmental education programs, which include first जो है, that is sensory immersion, the Dachigam's experience. जो एटीट्यूड चेंज है, इट इज़ वन ऑफ द स्ट्रॉन्गेस्ट एस्पेक्ट जब लर्निंग जो है, दैट इज़ मोर एक्सपीरियंशियल और प्रैग्मेटिक. लाइक जो स्टूडेंट जो है, व्हेन दे विजिट nature walks, when they perform nature walks, like जो schools है, they organize guided visits to the Dachigam national parks, जहाँ students जो है, they observe Hangul habitats, they identify hoop marks and feeding areas, and they also experience the forest environment directly. And ये जो direct exposure है, it basically creates a real and lasting impression. Similarly, silent observation, लाइक जो स्टूडेंट्स हैं उनको सिखाया जाता है आउट ऑफ साइलेंस ड्यूरिंग फॉरेस्ट वॉक्स विच अल्टीमेटली minimizes the noise, which also develops the respect attitude among the children towards the wildlife species, and they also observe deer without disturbing animals, which ultimately nurtures humility and respect for nature and reduces the human centered worldview. सेकेंड जो है दैट इज स्टोरी टेलिंग एंड कल्चरल आइडेंटिटी. जो एनवायरमेंटल एजुकेशन है इट इज़ ऑल्सो ए पावरफुल टूल व्हेन इट इज़ लिंक्ड विद द लोकल कल्चर, which like it include the last of its kind narrative, like जो हांगुल है इसको प्रेजेंट किया जाता है एज अ स्पीशी विच इज़ ओनली फाउंड इन द कश्मीर, एंड जो इट्स ऑल्सो रिप्रेजेंटेड एज ए सिंबल ऑफ रीजनल प्राइड एंड रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी जो है दैट ऑल्सो पास डाउन टू द फ्यूचर जनरेशंस. एंड ये जो फ्रेमिंग ये जो फ्रेमिंग है, दिस फ्रेमिंग अल्टीमेटली fosters the guardianship rather than ownership. Similarly, folk narratives and art like जो traditional stories, paintings या जो songs हैं featuring the Hangul, they also connect conservation with the cultural heritage, and they bridge the modern science and traditional wisdom, and which ultimately makes learning relatable and memorable. ठीक है. थर्ड जो है that is scientific inquiry and habitat understanding. जो अंडरस्टैंडिंग है रिगार्डिंग द कॉजेस ऑफ डिक्लाइन, इट ऑल्सो स्ट्रेंथन्स द concern, like food web analysis, like जो students हैं they learn how Hangul decline, how it affected the predators like leopards and black bears, and how vegetation patterns जो हैं that changes without the herbivores, and they also learn the cascading effects of such species loss, which ultimately develop a systems thinking. Similarly, threat mapping, like जो children हैं they also identify major threats such as habitat fragmentation. They also understand about the competition with the livestock in alpine meadows or margs, and also human infrastructure within protected areas, and also the disturbance from the routes and tourism. Through threat mapping, they recognize these threats as clarifies, and they understand their role in the conservation problems. Okay. For talking about the creative expression, that is the earth approach. जो art based activities and that also help children to internalize the conservation values, like Hangul mask workshops, like जो younger students हैं they create Hangul masks, and they also act out life struggles such as winter survival and predator avoidance. So ये जो role है, this role builds deep empathy among students. Similarly, creative writing, like जो students है they engage in various activities such as letter writing from the lost Hangul, and also write poems and short stories, which ultimately encourage students to see the world from the animalist perspective, and which ultimately strengthen the emotional attachment. ठीक है. Third, talking about the shifting perspectives before and after the program, like aspect value of Hangul. Before education program, we may say it is just an another tier, but after education program we can say जो Hangul had is a unique global heritage. Similarly, aspect view of habitat, we can say before education program जो forest है it is for human use, but after education program we can say जो forest है it is a sheer sanctuary. Similarly, aspect role of child before education, we can say it cannot make a difference, but after education program we can say I am an ambassador. Similarly, aspect development की अगर हम बात करें before education we will say it is always beneficial, but after education program we can say it must be sustainable. So ये जो changes हैं, these changes also indicate deep attitude transformation rather than surface level awareness. ठीक है. For talking about the community based action programs, like जो environmental education है it also extend beyond schools, which include Hangul clubs, or that we also called as eco clubs, जहाँ students जो है they establish clubs जहाँ वो follow करते हैं वाइल्ड लाइफ न्यूज़ को, जहाँ वो सेलिब्रेट करते हैं वाइल्ड लाइफ वीक को, एंड जहाँ वो also कंडक्ट करते हैं पोस्ट कैंपेन्स एंड debates. Similarly, they also participate in awareness rallies which students lead near Tachigam National Park, जहाँ वो through such awareness rallies they promote no hawking zones, they educate tourists on responsible behavior, and they also advocate no littering rules. So जो children हैं they can often influence adults more effectively than authorities. ठीक है. फिफ्थ टॉकिंग अबाउट द चाइल्ड एज कैटलिस्ट फॉर कंजर्वेशन, जो अल्टीमेट एम है सेव हंगल प्रोग्राम की, दैट इज टू एक्सपैंड द चाइल्ड मॉरल सर्कल टू इंक्लूड वाइल्ड लाइफ. और जब चिल्ड्रन जो है व्हेन दे डीपली केयर अबाउट हंगल, जो फैमिलीज है उनकी, दे बिकेम मोर कॉन्शियस, और जो कम्युनिटीज है दे आल्सो शो ग्रेटर compliance with conservation rules, and which ultimately leads to the long term protection, so it becomes possible. So save the hangul in children's hearts, it ensures its survival in the wild. ठीक है. And conclusion, we had learned that कि जो environmental education programs है, such programs are centered also on the hangul, which demonstrate how attitude change जो है that is foundation of wildlife conservation. And by combining emotional engagement, scientific understanding, cultural identity and community action, ये जो programs है, such programs transform children into the lifelong conservation advocates. So जो hangul had thus becomes more than an endangered animal, and it becomes also a symbol of responsibility, pride and hope for Kashmiri's ecological future. सो गाइस दैट्स इट फॉर टुडे. आई होप आपको अच्छे से क्लियर हुआ होगा. अगर कोई भी डाउट कन्फ्यूजन हो तो आप कमेंट सेशन में ज़रूर लिखिए. सो दैट्स इट. I hope you find this video informative. Don't forget to share, like and subscribe to Discipline Talk channel. Thank you for watching.